Hello, my divine human light being friends. Welcome back to the channel. This is Mahadeva, the Thunder Wizard. And today we are going to do some review on what is the most important thing that you must do if you want to not only achieve 5D. This is going to be how people will intuitively live. Actually, they already do. Those who are in the fifth dimension, they intuitively live this way. We in the third dimension, we have to teach ourselves how to do it. But once you learn how to do it, you can continue to grow in this. So the one commandment to achieve 5D: live only your joy, have no fear, detach from the narrative, value your desires. We're going to talk about this because even though this is a very simple technique, it can be very confusing. So first I want to acknowledge what I'm going to teach you is probably the simplest thing anybody can do. But at the same time, it is very confusing for some people. And that's unfortunate, but it is the case. It's very confusing for many people. Some people, it's really challenging. I mean, for some people, like it's unbelievably challenging. But it's a very simple concept if you can tap into it. And the good news is that you're wired to tap into this, which is why all beings who live in higher dimensions do this intuitively. They do it intuitively because they don't have the problems that we have in the third dimension. They don't have their false ego identity. They don't live in a simulation where you have this illusion that you're isolated and separated from everything. They don't have any of that. So they already follow this. We have to learn how to do it, especially if we haven't been taught how to do it. So this is something that I teach in a book that I've already written, and I'll write it down for you here, but you can get my books here at michaelwilliamdenny.com. This is the book that I tell you is the most important book that you should read of mine. Sorry, I can't do two things at once. I'm a typical man. It's the Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life. In case you wondered why men can't do more than one thing at a time, it's because we have a smaller corpus callosum, which is, we have two brains here, literally two brains that are doing two things and thinking two things at the same time. And there's a strip of nerves in a bundle called the corpus callosum. The reason why women can be on the phone and changing diapers and writing out the shopping list all at the same time is because they have a larger corpus callosum, which means that the two sides of the brain can communicate better with each other. I know that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. I just find that very interesting. So it makes men very good at taking direct actions, and it makes women much better at solving personal, transpersonal issues. They got to keep the family in order, so they're able to do multiple things at once, and many, many other things as well. Anyway, sorry, I digress. One commandment to achieve 5D. I've already told you about the books. This channel, I give you practical tools to accomplish what you want. It's great that you come and listen to me talk, but really listening to me talk is 5% of what this channel is here for. I give you practical tools to accomplish achieving 5D. This is something you can do. This is something you can accomplish now. You don't have to wait for it later. You can begin the process now. But it will require action. Action is absolutely essential. And most important, you have to take correct action. If you're a Buddhist, you know that it's one of the basic things that Buddhists teach, which is you have to take correct action. It's not just enough to have correct thoughts and feelings. You have to take correct action as well. We live in the third dimension. The third dimension is activated through actions. Sitting around thinking accomplishes almost nothing. You can sit around and meditate about the kind of perfect life that you want, and I recommend that you do that. And that creates a template, but it is your action that actually activates the universe to create your reality. So all of the things that I teach you on this channel are action-based. Physical movements, the Qigong is extremely important because your soul lives here in your heart center. But the soul is separate. That's why you feel so alone in this world. Your soul is separate from the rest of everything because it's encapsulated inside this human body. There's a layer of electromagnetic energy that surrounds the soul, that protects it from the harshness of two-dimensional reality, but it also isolates you unless you do the work to connect your soul to things outside of it. Doing energy practices, simple movements and breathing, and there is a science to this. You have to know the science behind it and do the correct movements in the correct order, which then will open up and stimulate the meridians and the energy system in the body, and that connects the soul to three-dimensional reality and beyond. So I teach you how to do that. So the first thing you ought to do after you go and get that book that I just told you to get, which we're going to talk about, is you should go on to the YouTube channel and go to the playlists. Go to the playlists and you have access to the free meditations, the free Qigong, all kinds of things. Everything that is important I've put into playlists. And you should also be doing the guided free interdimensional meditations. Then when you're serious, when you've done interdimensional meditation and you've done the Huul breath, Huul breath, or the Awakening the Immortals or something like that, and you've tapped into the energy and you realize this is for real and you're serious about it, then go here to thunderwizard.com and subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. Follow my instructions, press play, and just do what I do. And then you will have the most powerful environment to do what we're going to talk about. If you've been watching me for years, and there are people who have been watching me for years, who have heard me explain the one commandment to a perfect life, the one commandment you must do in order to achieve 5D. In fact, we can call this the law of one. This is actually the true law of one. There is a law of one out there. If you're not familiar with it, don't waste your time, because it's an incorrect, inaccurate teaching. Now, a lot of people treat it like the Bible, and they'll get very upset if I say the law of one is nonsense, because people worship channelers. This is unfortunately a childish, immature thing that humans do because humans want to abdicate their responsibility. They don't want to be critical thinkers. This is why people literally believe every single word in the Bible, even though it contradicts itself all over the place. And when you put it into practice, it doesn't work. The law of one is nonsense. There are some general platitudes that, of course, are accurate. But just to give you an example, the law of one has this sliding scale. It's an arbitrary sliding scale that says whether or not you can shift to 5D. And it puts it at 51%. And so if you live for others more than yourself, 51% for others and 49% for yourself, according to the law of one, you can now shift. But if you live 51% for yourself and 49% for others, then you're not ready. And this is complete nonsense. It is dualism. The universe we're going to talk about does not function this way. This is not a dualist universe. Not only that, that is called codependence. There is never, I can't stress this enough, there is never a time or a situation where you will have to choose between what your soul wants and what is good for other people. You will never be put in that position. If you feel like you're in that position, you are in a codependent state. Because and the woman, I don't know if it was the woman that did the actual channeling, I don't know, but some woman was talking about the law of one, and she was saying, if you have a peanut butter sandwich, this is very strange. I think about eating peanut butter sandwiches, and the peanut butter breath is disgusting to me. So I can't imagine sharing a peanut butter sandwich with somebody, because the thought of being close to somebody eating and smacking their lips and smelling like peanut butter disgusts the hell out of me. Even though I love eating peanut butter sandwiches by myself. I don't anymore, but I used to. But she said that if you got a peanut butter sandwich and there's a person next to you, you're a really good person if you give that, and you're hungry, and you give that person your entire sandwich. Well, then you're living 100% for other people and 0% for yourself. You're enlightened, which is nonsense. How do I know it's nonsense? What do they tell you on a plane? When they talk about, every time you're on a plane and they tell you what to do if the plane crashes, and they tell you that the oxygen mask comes down, what's the first thing they tell you to do? First, put oxygen on your own face, then take care of the person next to you. That just makes sense. It's also true in reality when we're talking about what you need for yourself. I got nothing against you splitting half of your sandwich with somebody else. I got no problem with that. I got no problem with you giving your food away to somebody else as long as you're going to be taken care of. But the value that's put onto that is pure codependence. This is one of the reasons you should throw away the law of one, because they push that on you. That you have to not do anything for yourself. You should do things for other people, and those are called chronically codependent people. And it's a sickness, and it comes from selfishness. You say, how can that be selfish? I'm giving away my disgustingly smellingly peanut butter sandwich to some person. Well, the reason why it's selfish is because you're doing it for the express purpose of being seen as a spiritual person, in the hopes that the universe will allow you to go to 5D. It's just like getting to heaven because you believe in Jesus. You don't have to do anything. You just have to believe in the right person, which means be part of the group. And then you have to go around and virtue signal. You have to wear your crosses everywhere. You have to go to church, and you have to say, oh my God, isn't this a beautiful day? The Lord has made don't we have such a good God? And you go around virtue signaling about how spiritual you are, in the hopes that everybody will see that and accept you and think well of you, and that God will go, you talked about me today, and my ego is bigger, so now you're a good person. And that's not how the universe works. It's the exact opposite. That is called codependence. So if you're going to master what we're going to teach today, you're going to have to learn to get rid of your codependence, which means you're going to have to take the risk that people aren't going to like you. You're going to have to take the risk of people judging you, rejecting you. If you're not willing to do that, then you won't succeed at this. You won't find what it is that you truly want in life. You won't be successful, you won't be happy. Because if you buy into the idea that you have to sacrifice yourself in order to make other people happy and in order to have the universe love you, you are mentally ill. It's basically a mental illness. It's narcissism. It's literally the definition of covert narcissism. You're pretending to be righteous and good when in reality you're You're getting rid of all of the things that you need. You're giving yourself away. You're giving your energy away to people for the specific purpose of having them love you and accept you. All of the people, and those of you listening to me, if you listen to me and you identify as an empath or a super empath or a heyoka or whatever the new thing is, a chosen one, that's the new one online, is to call yourself a chosen one. If you identify yourself as any of these things, you're not going to like what I'm telling you, because all of those are just euphemisms for chronic, untreated codependence. The whole idea of being an empath, where you give your energy away. You go into places where people are and they have this ability to pull your energy out of you. You get into relationships with narcissists, even though for some reason it says in the 10 traits of a super empath that a super empath can see lies. And they know when somebody's being untruthful, and yet you always end up with these narcissistic, abusive people. You can't seem to figure that part out. Oh no, I'm with narcissists because I give so much and that's why they target me. Well, if you can see when people are lying, they won't be able to target you. So how is it they're able to target you? Because you want them to target you. Because you want to have all of your energy flowing out of you. You want to be a victim so that then you can virtue signal to God and say, God, look at me. I'm like Jesus on the cross. Look at how I'm suffering for these horrible people. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. Now can I go to 5D? Am I a good person? And God goes, no, when did I ever tell you to do this to yourself? Who told you that damaging yourself was somehow spiritual? Oh yeah, those people in church tell you that, but that's because they're narcissists and codependents. So this is the true law of one. And so the one commandment is that you must obey your soul. You must obey your soul. Unlike religion that tells you that your soul is separate from God. That's the first thing they teach you. I remember because I was a Christian. I remember because I went to a Christian college, and I remember walking around with this book called The 4 Spiritual Laws. I'm sure they still have it. You go knock on people's door and say, would you like to hear how God saved me or whatever? And then you say there are 4 laws. The first one is, you are separate from God. It's the first thing they tell you. The assumption, the base assumption of the Christian religion is that you are separate from God. And that is false. Your soul is God. Should I repeat myself? Your soul is God. If a person comes up to you and asks you to do something that is contrary to what your soul wants, that person is asking you to damn yourself to hell. Because there is no separation between you and God. You must obey God, and God is your soul. Now, the commandment that your soul will give you is going to be based in something you can literally feel, emotionally and sometimes physically. So people ask this question all the time. They say, I just want to know what God's will for me is. If God would just come down and tell me what his will for me is and what my destiny is. Well, God doesn't need to do that because God is your soul. And if you are saying, I don't know what my soul wants me to do, it means that you are disconnected from your own soul. I'm sorry, but it's very easy to fix, but it's sad. The reason why you're disconnected from your soul is because the narrative, the world, the third dimension wants to separate you from your soul, because when you're separated from your soul, you can be manipulated, you can be controlled, you can be enslaved. People do it all the time. Destructive, dysfunctional, codependent narcissistic relationships. That's what it's based on. You're dealing with a person who wants you to do something for them that they think that they want, which they really, it's not coming from their soul. It's coming from their screwed up, self, their ego. But they want you to do something. And they tell you, your value to me is based on giving me what I want. So right there, they don't see you as having a soul. They don't love you. Because if you love somebody, your first priority is for them to be at one with their own soul, to make themselves happy. If you are one with your soul, you will be happy when other people are living their soul. That will make you happy. If you are operating from your soul, every single person in your life, whether they be family members or love relationships or friends or co-workers, what will give you joy is when you see that they are happy within themselves. And you will want nothing else. You will not have a personal agenda on them. That's love. When you have an agenda and you want somebody to do something for you, it's not love. So, your soul is God. And if you want to know what God is commanding you, you have to know how to listen to your soul. It's very simple because your soul communicates to you in one language only. I'm going to repeat myself. Your soul communicates to you in one language only, and that language is joy, bliss. When your soul sends you a message about an action for you to take, a way for you to live, a desire to be fulfilled, and when you feel joy, when you feel bliss at the thought of doing it, that's God's commandment. That's God telling you. That's Moses on the mountain. God can't be any clearer than that. That is God telling you, this is your destiny. God will never ask you to do something that makes you unhappy. Because God is your own soul, and your own soul is not going to tell you to do something that makes you unhappy. Now, don't conflate that with fear, because your soul might tell you to do something that will cause you fear. But your fear will only be associated with whether or not you get approval from other people or the world. So there's only one war that we must fight. And the war that we must fight is the war to achieve our deepest desires or to make other people happy. That's it. It's very simple, but I'm not minimizing it. It's extremely difficult. So if you are confused, if you have to say, I don't know what my soul desire is, I don't know what my soul wants me to do. If you say that, it means that you are stuck in a conflict and you can't tell the difference between what makes you happy and what you think other people want you to do. You've conflated it so much that you actually think your joy comes from making other people happy. Do you see the difference? Making somebody else happy is not the same as encouraging people to be happy within themselves. Those are different. When you are living from your soul, you want to watch somebody live their joy. Maybe they need some help, some encouragement. Great, you can encourage them and help them. But they must make themselves happy. They must achieve their own joy. That's why, great parents say to their kids, I don't care what you do for a living. I just want you to be happy. I want to support you doing what you want, as opposed to what happens most of the time, which is, hey, we have been grocery store owners for 7 generations, and you are going to take over my company when I die, so you get in there. What do you mean you're not going to do the family business? How dare you do this to us? You're killing us, you're destroying us, you're dishonoring us, you're a horrible child. That's somebody who doesn't understand this concept. That's manipulation. That's saying that your value comes from what you do for me. Whereas a real parent says, I'm happy within myself. I don't need you to be anything. I just love you and I want you to be happy. Whatever that is, I'll support you in that. You go do that. Go do that thing that makes you happy. I'll love you no matter what you do. That's a true parent. That's a true friend. That's a true spouse. That's a true government, which we don't have. There's no such thing like that. There's no government anywhere that says, we are just creating a safe space so that people can live their joy. Find one government that does that. I haven't found it yet. We don't have one. Maybe we will in the next reality, but not in this one. So I'm making this today because, again, people have been communicating to me and telling me that they're basically, bottom line, what it comes down to is that they're telling me that they have a conflict. So this is really all that happens in my sessions with people. If you want to know, by the way, you can go to career.thunderwizard.com. If you want, you can get that. Video teaching, which, by the way, is included here in the 923.thunderwizard.com for much less. You can do that and teach yourself that, and you can use that and make a living as a career consultation coach. I've set it up to teach yourself how to do that. So you learn how to do it, and then you can teach other people how to do it. At the bottom of that page, you can purchase a session with me. And what happens in the session is that I simply ask you questions because I know what questions to ask. I listen to your answers, and that tells me where to go and what questions to ask. And eventually we will get to what it is you truly want. Whether or not you do it, that's a whole other thing. But your soul is God, and your destiny, you must obey God. You must do it. If you do not obey God, you will be miserable. You will be miserable, unhealthy, you will be poor, you will have bad relationships, you will be lonely, you will be angry, depressed, sad, resentful, all of those things. Every single one of those things is a result of one thing only: being in conflict with your soul. And the conflict is, do I do what I want or do I do what other people want? And if you live for other people, your soul becomes angry and you will become either resentful or depressed. This is the cause of all cancer, the cause of all physical illness, the cause of arthritis, the cause of fibromyalgia, the cause of every illness that we have is the body attacking itself. And you attack yourself because you're full of self-hatred. You cannot live for other people without feeling self-hatred. Shame. It's impossible. The sad part is that it is possible to have the feeling of shame and not take destructive action. But when you take action towards that's contrary to what your soul wants, your shame now is weaponized. And your shame now becomes a weapon that you use to destroy yourself. Listen, people die of cancer and they die of illnesses so that they won't have to confront the people in their lives that they're trying to please. There are people who are in bad relationships, really destructive relationships, and because they can't bring themselves to leave their partner because there's so much guilt, they will make themselves sick and die. They'll die of cancer so that they won't have to divorce their husband or wife. That's just one example. So this is serious business. You know, people think that they can choose to, you know, the main argument that people give to me when they talk with me and I say, well, that's what you want, they'll tell me, you know, I'll be able to ask the questions and ask them enough questions so then they'll verbalize what their soul desire is. And I'll go, well, that's it. You have to go do that. And the first thing they say is, well, I can't right now. I need the money. I can't right now. I have to take care of my grandfather. I can't right now because, and they'll come up with a reason why they can't. It's usually about money. They'll say, I can't quit my job because I need the money to, you know, take care of my narcissistic husband and my child. And so maybe if I do this other get rich quick scheme, I can make enough money and then I can quit my job. And then I go, no, you're missing the whole thing. If you did have enough money, you'd still be living your life for other people and you'd never go through with it. And so that's the sad part. And it's because we are trained as children to believe that our survival depends upon the approval of our parents. Now, this works if your parents are loving people. Because if your parents love you, they will tell you the way to make me happy is to live your dreams. And so you end up wanting to survive because you want your parents' love and approval. And you've been programmed to immediately start thinking about the ways that make you happy, because you know when you're happy, they're going to be happy. You can feel it. And they've rewarded you when you were a little kid and you were able to, ride your bicycle without training wheels, when you were able to sing, or when you were able to juggle, or when you were able to do a math problem because it was something that interested you. Your parents clapped and they hugged you and they kissed you and they gave you gifts. And you went, oh, if I do this thing that makes me feel good, mom and dad will be happy. I'll be okay. I will survive. And that's why people who have healthy parents, they go out and, a good example is, whenever I do these videos, I can't think straight. I can't come up with names because my brain is going so fast. But what is that? What are those TV shows, those reality shows, those music shows? I forget what they're called. Anyway, you have to go and it's a singing competition. So I can remember watching that years ago, and I always saw the same trend. There would always be one or two musicians that would be absolutely brilliant. And they would sing with so much emotion. And so much so that the judges would be crying because they were so connected to what they were doing. But unfortunately, what made them so passionate was that they grew up, with a alcoholic or drug addict, single mom, or something like that. It'd be something, really tragic, and that fills them with all of this angst and emotion, but it makes them brilliant. But the interesting thing is, you'd be watching it and they would be just kicking ass and destroying everybody else. And then all of a sudden it would come to the final competition and they would completely screw up. And what you would see is the other musicians who were good or pretty good, and you would see that they would have in the audience their mom, their dad, their sister, their brother, with the little placard saying, "Go, Johnny, you're the best. We love you. We're with you." And so they'd be up there singing, and they'd see their parents and their family with these, "We love you, go for it." And they would then kick into gear and they would just kick ass. But the genius musicians whose single drug addict mom, of course, doesn't show up. No family members show up. And when they go to perform, they forget the words. They screw it up somehow. And then the judges always say the same thing. They say, I wanted to give this to you, but, you stopped halfway through. You forgot the words to the song. I can't. I want to give it to you, but I can't. And it's because of what I just told you. The ones that were pretty good, weren't brilliant, but they were pretty good, they knew that their lives depended on making their parents happy, and their parents were telling them, you do your thing. We love you when you're being your highest, best expression of yourself, whatever that is. We just want you to be happy. Well, we remember when she was 4 years old and she would sing, and it made her so happy, and we encouraged her as much as we could, and we just love seeing. We don't care if she's successful or not. We don't care about that. We just want her to be happy. Those are the ones that win. So if you're struggling because you say, I don't know what my soul desire is, I don't know what my soul wants me to do, that's the only reason why. You have something inside of you that says that you're a bad person if you make yourself happy. And you will sabotage and destroy your success. And your success is nothing other than your happiness. How do I know that? Bill Gates is incredibly successful. He's the second richest man on the planet. Do you think that he's a happy person? He doesn't strike me as a happy person. Maybe I'm wrong. So being successful in a monetary way has nothing to do with your happiness. It has nothing to do with your success. I have an incredibly successful YouTube channel, even though I have almost no subscribers compared to the big people. Why? Because on a daily basis, I get communications from people who say that I saved their life. That they followed my suggestions, they read my book, they've been doing energy practices, something like that, and they said it's completely changed me. And some people actually say, if I hadn't found you, I'd be dead. You saved my life. Now, am I rich? No. I mean, I've got enough money to get me through this month. Hopefully I'll get enough money next month to get me through next month. I've got everything I need and I want, but I'm certainly not rich. I'm not a success compared to Oprah. But at the same time, I don't have millions of people bad-mouthing me saying that I'm trying to steal land from people who've been dispossessed by fires. I'm a success because the work that I do actually makes people happy, and I only do the work that makes me happy. So that makes me a success. So if you want to be a success, you have to listen to what your soul wants you to do. You have to be willing to do that. And this is the fifth dimension. Again, if you understand this, this is why I have never bought into the idea that there's such a thing as evil aliens. I know for a fact there aren't. At least none that are coming to Earth, because the ones that are coming to Earth are higher dimensional beings. And you cannot be an unhappy, resentful, full of shame, destructive, selfish, manipulative monster if you live in a higher dimension. It's not possible. Because when you get to higher dimensions, you live this law. This law becomes your physical reality. Gravity is our physical reality here. If I step off my balcony, I'm going to fall. That's just, I know that. So I follow the law of gravity and I go down the steps instead. Well, the law of one, the true law of one in the fifth dimension is that I am God. My soul is infinite. My soul is God. Therefore, I must make my soul happy. I must do that. That is a commandment. Because in the fifth dimension, if you don't do that, you stop existing in that dimension altogether. And nobody does that. Nobody consciously harms themselves that way. And when you're in the higher dimensions, you also know that what you can feel other people's soul. And so you know when they're happy, that makes you happy, which makes them happy, which makes you happy. You go do something that makes you happy, you can feel other people feeling happy as a result of that. There's no separation. That's the true law of one. and has nothing to do with sacrificing yourself for making yourself miserable so other people can be happy. There's no such law in the universe. It doesn't exist. That's called hell. That's called living in hell, where your value, your lovability is based on other people's opinions, based on what you do for other people. So there's a real simple process. I'm going to teach you how to do it. Very simple. I teach it in my books. I teach it in the video course. It's real simple. First thing we're going to do is we are going to play with your head a little bit. So we're going to use your imagination. And those of you who have gone through it, don't give away the secret of this. If you haven't done it, I want you to listen to me very carefully. Do exactly what I'm telling you. It's very simple. We're just going to take an imagination journey here. And so we're going to go to a place called Fantasyland. Now in Fantasyland, which by the way is not real life, it's not your real three-dimensional life, it's a fantasy. All right, so I just want to give yourself permission to really flex your imagination muscles, because that's all we're doing. This isn't real. It doesn't mean anything. Okay? Got that? So we're going to go to a place called Fantasyland. Now, Fantasyland does have some rules. Even though it's a non-real place, it does have some rules. And the first rule is, in Fantasyland, there is no money. So you never have to ever do anything to make money. You don't have to pay bills. You don't have to buy food. In Fantasyland, everything you want magically appears. If you want a mansion appears. If you want groceries appear. You want a new surfboard, whatever it is, it appears for you. You don't have to have money to get it. You just have to want it, and it appears. Okay? So no pressure. Now you don't have to make money in Fantasyland. Second thing in Fantasyland is you don't have to meet anybody's approval. So you don't have to do anything to look good, which means there's no such thing as a wrong wish. Like in this life, let's say, you wanted to do something and you realized that that's not practical, that's not really important to society. And so you say, well, as fun as that is, I'm not going to end up doing that as a career because, I need to give back to society. Well, in Fantasyland, that rule doesn't apply. In Fantasyland, no matter how silly, no matter how stupid, no matter how wrong, no matter how sinful, as long as it makes you happy, truly happy, you can do it. So first rule is you don't need to do anything because of money. The second rule is you don't have to do anything to gain anybody's approval. You don't have to make your parents happy. You don't have to make God happy. You don't have to make the government happy, your school, your friends, your spouse. You don't have to do anything to make anybody happy. It's the second rule. The third and final rule is that anything is possible. So if you want to be 100 feet tall with 10 heads and wings and webbed feet, if that's what makes you happy, then you allow yourself to be that. All right? So now as you're sitting here, I just want you to, if you need to, you can go get a pencil and a piece of paper if those things still exist, and you can simply write it down. And I want you to imagine yourself in Fantasyland. You don't have to do anything for money. You don't have to make anybody happy. And it can be absolutely anything. It doesn't matter whether it's possible or impossible. With those in mind, right off the top of your head, what are you doing at this moment to make yourself happy? That's the question. What are you doing? Are you flying through the air? Are you making art? Are you working at a grocery store? Are you, a superhero? Whatever the hell it is, right? So, and again, remember, this is fantasy. It's not reality. You don't have to do it. That's really important. You don't have to do it. You're just giving yourself an opportunity to stretch so you can give yourself more options when we actually do the next part, which is find out what you're supposed to do in this world. That's coming up in a second. But before we do that, you have to give yourself complete, total, utter freedom, even if it's totally impossible, implausible, and stupid and silly. All right? So you don't need money. You don't need to please anybody. You can do absolutely anything you want as long as it makes you happy. Right off the top of your head, what are you doing? You don't need to put it in the chat. Just tell it to yourself. If you need some time, go ahead and pause the video now and come back later and then keep going. So if you're still watching, I'm assuming you figured out what it is. All right, now, is this unreasonable? Is it an unreasonable thing to do? Some of you are going to say, yeah, this is totally unreasonable. I don't have the ability to do this. Well, I'm here to tell you that I was lying to you a few seconds ago when I said that this was only fantasy and you didn't have to do it. If in your fantasy land you came up with something that made you silly, crazy, happy, and it was totally impossible, this is what you're supposed to do. Now, in my experience, when I've done this and I've led people through this question, they've never come up with anything that was unreasonable. They always end up saying, I want to dance, I want to make music. They come up with something that to them is completely undoable. And I'll say, well, that's what you're supposed to do. And they'll say, I can't. Why not? Well, I have this job. I have responsibilities. I mean, it's selfish of me. I can't. It's just stupid. I'm too old. I'll tell you one of the saddest stories. If you've listened to me talk about this, I've talked about it a few times and I'm going to share it again. It illustrates this point. I had a client and I was taking her through this and I walked her through the questions. And as long as it was a fantasy that she didn't have to do, she came up with this amazing idea. She was in her 40s and she had been a dancer when she was younger. And she decided that in her fantasy, which she didn't have to do, she wanted to do stage presentations with multimedia and music. And she was going to dance. And the whole point of the dance was to help people do exactly what we're talking about. Find out what their inner joy was. And when she described it to me, I literally started tearing up. And I said to her, I want to go see this. I need to see this. I would pay money to come see this. I said, this is something you have to do. This is your path. This is your soul desire. And for about 10 seconds, she listened and she started imagining it, and then the resistance kicked in, and within another 10 seconds she was saying, this is silly, I can't do this, I'm too old, I don't have the money, I would need a lot of money to be able to do this, nobody's going to want to see this. And then she spent the last 10 minutes of our session trying to convince me that what she needed to do was search engine optimization, because that's where you could make a lot of money. And if she made a lot of money, then maybe she could do it in her spare time. And I said, I'm sorry to tell you that's never going to happen. It's not how it works. Your soul, now you have no excuse. Your soul, God has told you, has commanded you what you're supposed to do. I already told you I need what you want to give to the world. The world needs this. You need to do it. It makes you happy. You have to do this. And I was very sad when I hung up the phone because she refused and she said, no, I'm not going to do it. Thank you for your time. I don't think this is right for me. I'm going to go and I'm going to take one of those those search engine optimization courses, and thank you anyway, that's what I'm going to do. And I hung up the phone and I cried. It was so sad for me. She was taking away from me. I meant what I said. I said, I want to go see this. I need to see this. I would pay money to sit in the theater and watch this. How much? $100 for a ticket? I'll spend $100 to sit in the theater and watch this. And of course I was sad for her, because I guarantee you she's not going to find any joy, nor is she going to be able to get out of her financial rut by doing search engine optimization. It's not going to happen. We can listen to that story. You can listen to that story, and with me, you can go, oh my God, that's so easy to do. That is so doable. There is nothing about that that's impossible. People do that all the time. She could totally pull that off. Start small, and then it would, oh my God. But in her mind, it was impossible. In her mind, it was silly, it was wrong, it was completely undoable. She was absolutely, completely out of her mind in Looneyville land thinking that that was possible. But that's her own resistance. And it's because somewhere along the line, she got the message that living and being artistic and happy is stupid. And she didn't want to be stupid. She didn't want to be silly. She wanted to be loved by her abusive parents in her mind, I'm assuming, who told her, no, don't be an artist. Don't be a dancer. That's stupid. I know other people, I could name off other people that have done the same thing, made themselves miserable. So it is incredibly painful. It is the most painful thing in the world. The most painful thing in the world is the thought that you won't be loved. We've learned how to desensitize ourselves to this. This is why people smoke. This is why people drink. This is why people do drugs. This is why people watch porn and go to UFC and, waste their time with all that kind of stuff. This is why people do that. This is why people become criminals. People become criminals because they hate themselves. I kind of forgot what I was saying. It felt important. The most painful thing in human 3D life is the thought that we are not loved and we are not seen. It's even more when we feel that our true essence is ugly. And so we try and be something other than who we truly are. I can remember being in my very early 20s. It was very early in my recovery, and I was in a lot of pain. And I remember seeing this guy. He was a positive, like a coach, a life coach, and he was a positive speaker, whatever they call that. And he was up on stage, and he had been born with some pretty horrific handicaps. I can't remember what they were. He wasn't pleasant to look at, and he wasn't capable of functioning physically like you and I are. But he had a joy about him that was unbelievable. And he was talking about same kinds of things I'm talking about. And I remember sitting there as being 25 years old. I was a very handsome, fit young man. If you were to look at me, you would say, oh, that guy's going to go somewhere. And I absolutely hated myself. And I remember feeling like the world would be better off if I were dead. That if I didn't exist, the world would be happier. I'm a drain on the world. Just my existence causes the world sadness and pain. Every breath I take is a waste. I'm wasting the oxygen because it should go to somebody more worthy than me. These were the feelings I had inside of me. And I remember thinking, that guy looks on the outside the way I feel on the inside. And the way I feel on the inside is the way he looks on the outside. And I wanted to trade places with him because I wanted to have his happiness. So the most painful thing anybody can feel is feeling as though they don't belong, as though they don't deserve to exist. And when you are listening to your soul and your soul is telling you, I want to be a dancer and I want to make multimedia presentations to help people live their truth, that you won't be able to do that if you don't decide to love who you are. If you believe that you don't deserve to be loved, then that's the part of you that says, I can't do it, it's silly, I need to make more money. If I had the money, if I had the spare time, I can't because of my kids, I can't because of my, where I live, I can't because of all of these reasons. Here are all the reasons. Maybe later if I get some spare time, maybe then. Every time I hear that, I translate that into, I don't deserve to, my true self doesn't deserve to exist. My true self nobody wants to see. I'm not lovable. I'm not worthy. So you can't simply snap your fingers and make that go away. I'm 60 years old. That experience was when I was in my early 20s. So 2/3 of my life ago. 40 years ago is when I had that experience. And here I am now telling you what the answer to 5D is and what the answer to happiness is, only because I know what the answer isn't. And I know, this is why, one of the reasons I don't answer people's questions anymore is because half the time they'll ask a question, they'll say, that's not what you want to know. What you're really asking me is, I'll say, what you're really feeling is, and I've decided I don't like the way that feels, so I've stopped doing that. But that's why. Because I've been where you are. That's why it's best if you find a teacher that you respect, that you follow instructions. Because they've been where you are. And they know what's most important for you to get what you want. And you're going to have to do some things that are uncomfortable. So if you are stricken with this self-hatred that is endemic in an epidemic in our third dimension, then when you think about your true joy, your brain will immediately step in front of you and start to shame you. Maybe outright make you feel guilty. Maybe, there have been days, many days, more than I can count. There have been days when I knew what I needed to do for this channel. And I've made video courses or made videos, and just writing, like sitting down and writing the notes for the video course that I'm going to make. Sometimes the pain within me is so intense that all I can do is maybe do one 10-minute video. And then the rest of the day I have to just crawl in bed and, be in pain. Because that, what I was programmed to do was to hate my true self. Was to hate that part of me. And so when I operated from that, the level of assault that would come out of my own mind towards me was horrifically painful. But I knew that there was only one thing for me to do, that I had to follow the commands of my soul. I had to do it. Even to this day, there are days when I go out, and I'm right now living in my perfect, I live in the rainforest in Queensland, Australia, and even in the middle of winter, the water's still 70 degrees. And, the surfing is awesome. And there's, I walk through rainforest jungle to get to the, empty blue, green, warm ocean. And the waves are amazing. And sometimes it's just completely all to myself. And I can't believe how amazing it is. And I come home and I'll be in physical pain because my body looks for reasons to punish me for being happy. Even after all this, even after everything I've learned. So there's nothing I tell you to do that I don't do myself. Nothing. Which is why I'm a good teacher. Because I know what you're going to have to go through. And that's why I'm not afraid. This is why when I work with clients, there are clients that I've worked with, and if they can't follow instructions, for, say 4 or 5, 6 sessions in a row, I give them some very simple instructions and they can't follow it, I will say there's nothing more I can do for you. I'm sorry, but I can't work with you anymore because you can't follow instructions. And if you can't follow my instructions, you're not going to benefit. You're just wasting your money. Go spend your money on something else. And it hurts them and they feel bad and I feel bad. But I know that the only thing that matters is if you're willing to take the actions that are the most painful. And sitting around watching porn or playing video games or smoking weed or, watching UFC or whatever your drug of choice is not going to be nearly as painful as getting up and starting to write the outline for your show that you're going to make, like that woman. She said no to me. The reason why she said she needed to do search engine optimization was because as she started imagining herself, the pain was unbearable. The shame, self-directed shame was unbearable for her, and she wasn't willing to weather that pain. If she was willing to weather that pain, she would probably have to go through years of feeling that pain, but it would get less and less each time. Each time she made that show and somebody came up to her in tears and said, "You've changed my life. You saved my life. I needed to see this. Now I know what I'm supposed to do." When you see enough of those people come back to you and tell you that you've changed their life, that you may have saved their life, then you're willing to go through the pain next time. Next time you go through the pain, that's what you got in front of you. I'm going to finish this video series because I know that this is going to help somebody. I don't get off on the idea of talking about higher dimensional ETs. I get no ego boost from telling you that I talk to extraterrestrials. It is ridiculously silly. Every single day of my life, I say to myself, what the hell am I doing? I tell you about it because I know that it's true. I tell you not because I want you to think, because I'm trying to be the next UFO, New Age UFO David Icke. I have no interest in that. The only reason I tell you about this is because I know that people need to hear it. And I know that a lot of people are going to think I'm nuts. And a lot of people are going to think I'm lying, and a lot of people are going to think I'm full of shit. I know that. Already I know that. I don't care. I don't do any of this to look good. If I wanted to look good, there are a bunch of different things I could be doing right now. But every time I've tried to do those things that make me look good, I'm miserable and I'm even less successful. So this is the path of the shaman too. The path of the shaman is you have to follow your soul, and you got to know that most people look at shamans like you're nuts, like you're bonkers. You have to do that thing. You have to follow your soul. All right, so that's the deal. The deal is the one thing that you must do in order to achieve 5D is you must obey your soul. You must live only for your joy. You must take actions regardless of your fear. You must detach from the narrative. And let's be clear, the narrative meaning the deep state. The narrative is forget about what you want, do what we want, and we'll love you. What did people tell you over the past 3 years? Get the or you're not going to be able to get on a plane, get on a bus, go to school. You're not going to be able to go to work. But if you do that, what a good person you are. You'll be such a good person. We will all love you. Don't do it for yourself. As Arnold Schwarzenegger said, screw your freedom. Do it for other people. Live your life for the benefit of the whole, not for yourself. That's the opposite of the truth. The whole is benefited when you live in your soul, the whole benefits, even if they don't like you. because you are a threat. The reason why Russell Brand is being, I don't know if you know what's going on, but the UK government has passed a law that basically gives them the right to deplatform people just by saying something they don't like. You know that what's happened with him. He's been accused of some really horrible things that have not been proven in court, and just the accusations have given the UK government, which, by the way, the accusations weren't brought by people, they were brought by media outlets, newspapers and television. They sought people out to try and find some dirt to throw on him. And the UK government went to Rumble and said, will you deplatform him? And Rumble said, no, he hasn't been convicted of anything, and he's not breaking any laws doing his videos. And now there are people in Rumble who are potentially going to jail for this, if I understand what's being said. That's the narrative. And it could be as simple as your boyfriend or your girlfriend saying, no, do that thing that you don't feel comfortable doing because it makes me happy. Do that thing that you don't want to do. Could be as simple and little as that, or it could be as big as risk your life or we will throw you in jail. It's the same thing. You're being devalued. Your value as an individual is being destroyed. And that's what happens every time you deny yourself living from the truth of your soul. So you must value your desires. Your desires are God's desires. If you want to make God happy, make yourself happy. If you make yourself happy, you'll be making God happy. All right, so I think that's it for today. And as I said before, I don't take any questions unless you happen to be subscribed to the 90-day challenge. And I recognize you. Otherwise, if you want to answer the question, whatever question you have, read my books, which you can get at michaelwilliamdenny.com. Go and binge watch the channel. You can learn how to use the search engine on the YouTube and type in whatever it is. Type in whatever. If you don't know how to search on somebody's channel, Google it. How do I search somebody's YouTube channel? Search my channel for all of the videos associated with your questions. I've probably answered it hundreds of times. And do the practices. And then if you subscribe and you're doing these practices, you're more likely to ask me the kinds of questions that I want to answer. So I'll look to see if there are any questions. Let's see. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions here. What else? No questions? No questions. Okay. That's all. Thanks, guys. I love you all. Thank you so much for showing up. I appreciate you existing. And if you love me and you want to make me happy, I'm going to tell you exactly how to do that. Do whatever the hell you have to do to follow your true path. Please do something every day. Do some meditation, do some qigong. Every single day, do something to empower yourself to get you towards 5D. If you have the ability to really commit to yourself and subscribe to the 90-day challenge or purchase the 923 or get my books, and if that helps me, keeps the lights on so much better. But whatever it is that you do, please do me a favor and do some energy and meditation practice and take some action towards your deepest desires, even if it feels like it's going to kill you. Because if you do that, you are going to save other people's lives. When you live your true soul purpose, there is somebody, if not millions of people, whose life could be saved simply because you followed your true path. There's somebody on this planet that won't get the message if you don't live it. There's somebody who will say, I changed because you showed me. Your example. At least one person, I guarantee you. And if you don't, if you end up going through this life and you don't live to your highest, deepest soul desire, I guarantee you there's going to be at least one person who will miss the message because you weren't there, giving yourself the greatest joy that you can. This is how important it is. It's not about, oh, it just makes me happy. This is like, you hear this from alcoholics and drug addicts. They'll say, I'm not hurting anybody else. No, every time you stick a needle in your neck or whatever it is that you do, you're harming other people. And that's what all of the family and friends are trying to tell you. Every time you get drunk, it hurts me. He said, don't tell me what to do. Every time you stick a needle in your arm, you're like, don't tell me what to do. I'm not hurting you. This is just my life. Don't tell me how to live. Every time you damage yourself, you harm somebody else. Every time that you make yourself happy, you heal somebody else. With that, I will let it go. Two most important things. The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life, which you can get here at michaelwilliamdenny.com. And three most important things. The second one is watch the videos on my channel, the 12 Steps to 5D. I haven't finished all 12 of them, but get started on those. And the third most important thing to do is to do the meditations and the energy work, especially interdimensional meditation. Do that. That will change you faster than anything else. So if you love me, transform yourself into who you want to be, and I will thank you for it. That's it, my friends. I love you all, and I will see you all next time. If the solar flash don't come and Captain Kirk doesn't beam me up to the Starship Enterprise, I will see you all very soon. Take care.